One of the most frequent questions I get asked during my live streams is which mutations do I recommend using or which ones am I using? And my standard answer is always I'm using Meat Shield for the extra health, Buff Lungs for the extra stamina, and Coup De Grass. Those are the three standard ones that I use most of the time. Early on, when I can only unlock two of them, I'm probably going to use these two, but once I get that third slot, I usually throw this on. Occasionally swap it out for Mithridatism if I'm near wolf spiders, but these are the three mainstays that I've been using for as long as I've been playing the game. But today I want to tell you why I'm going to recommend not using Coup De Grass, especially early game. There's only really a couple situations where this is going to be worth using, so we'll get to that in just a second. If you're not aware of what critical hit chance is, the way the critical hit chance works is you can do extra damage. So if you have by the default, you have 0 critical hit chance. So if you do not have any mutations on or any way of adding critical hit, you have a 0% chance of getting it. That means when you attack, you're going to do the damage that it's supposed to do. If you have a critical hit chance on, you can have a chance of doing more damage. So the way the critical hit chance works is when this activates, you'll be doing 70% more damage on your hit. So if the regular hit would do, like, let's say 10 damage, the critical hit would do 17. We're just using round numbers to make it easy. What this does is it increases your critical hit chance. Unfortunately, it's been nerfed. So it used to be 5% for phase 1 and 10% for phase 2. And in fact, the wiki up till recently had it as 10% and 25%. Not sure if that was ever the case, but I can confirm right now it's only 2.5% for phase 1 and 5% for phase 2. So what that means is you're basically going to have to swing your weapon 20 times on average before you're going to get that crit to proc. That's just super low and not worth it. Overall, if you have no other multipliers on, that means your average damage is only going to be about 3.5% more. Now, there's other ways of increasing the critical hit chance, the easiest of which is via a meal. So if you eat the Spider Slider or the Larvagna, they're both going to give you the critical hit chance. Both of these give 5%. I believe they used to be 10%. I cannot confirm that, but I swear that I'd always heard that these were 10%, and then the Coup De Grass was 25%, which would mean you'd be able to get 35%. In fact, these are only 5% right now. I have confirmed that. They're both the same, even though this one's a higher tier. So that means having both of those on is only going to give you a 10% chance. That means 1 out of every 10 swings. So every 10 swings you do, you're going to, on average, do a crit. That means you're going to overall increase your average damage by about 7%. Now, there's a couple of other ways to increase crit. Those are going to be via a weapon as well as an accessory. So the one weapon in the game right now that has increased critical hit chance is going to be the Stinger Spear, the tier 2 spear here made from bee parts. This says plus critical hit chance here. I was under the impression this was also a plus 10%. I was told that it was actually 2.5% before 1.0, so towards the end of early access. It may have been 10% a long time ago, I'm not sure, but I was told it was 2.5% right before 1.0 and is now only 1%. That means combining it with the Coup De Grass and the meal, you're only going to have an 11% chance, which means every 9 or so attacks, you're going to basically do a critical hit. So you're going to be every 9 swings, you have a chance of doing critical hit damage. That's going to increase your overall damage by about 7.7%. In addition to that, there's one other way to guarantee to get extra critical hit chance, and that's Thor's Pendant. This is found super late game. It's all the way up here in the tree stump. I'm probably going to do a video on the trinkets at some point, but it's basically found all the way up here. So you're not going to get it till super late game. What this does is it adds 1% more to critical hit chance. That'll bump it to 12%. However, it also adds 10% to your critical hit damage. So the base critical hit damage, as I said, was 70%. This will bump it up to 80%. So having this on will bump your critical hit chance to 12%, your crit damage to 180%. And basically, that means 1 out of every 8 hits or so, you'll do a crit, and it's going to increase your overall damage by about 9.6%. Now, if you don't use the Stinger Spear, but you use the mutation, the meal, and the Thor's Pendant, you'll be doing about 8.8% more damage by default. There are a couple of other ways of increasing it, but first I want to talk about a couple of things. One, having a 1 in 20 chance of getting a critical hit is just pathetically low, especially early game, because how many enemies, even the strongest enemies in the game, even when you're using unupgraded weapons, you're probably going to kill most of the stuff in the game with the tier 1 and the tier 2 weapons in less than 20 hits. Even a wolf spider is not going to take that many hits. So having a 1 in 20 or even a 1 in 10 chance is just not worth it. Later on, once you get upgraded weapons to level 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, once you get to tier 3 weapons, most enemies you're going to be able to take down in fewer hits than that. So the critical hit chance just doesn't even seem to matter. But let's talk about the other options in case you're still wondering, is there a better way to build a crit build? So there are actually 2 armors that you can use to increase your critical hit chance. The first of which is going to be the Black Ant armor. So the Black Ant armor, the piece bonus for it is crit after block. What this does is, and this is a piece bonus, that means if you have one, for each piece you have one, you have a chance of getting this bonus. After a block, you have a 50% chance for each piece to get 1% extra critical hit, 1% extra critical hit. So that means on average, you'll get about 1.5% if you're using the entire set, which would mean after getting a block, and only after getting a block, you'll have a 13.5% chance of getting a crit, or increasing your critical hit damage for, I think it's 15 seconds. So it's only after a block though. So that means if you run up to an enemy and hit them a couple times, doesn't matter. If you miss your block and then start hitting them, doesn't matter. So it's very dependent upon getting blocks, whether you use a shield or not, doesn't matter. But just getting a block or a perfect, it doesn't even have to be a perfect block. A block or a perfect block with a weapon or with a shield will give you that chance. Overall, with the other things all added together, that's going to increase your damage by about a little over 10%. If you're using the pendant, the stinger spear, and all that stuff. But to be honest, I don't think most people are using the stinger spear at that point. And then the one other option is going to be the mantis armor. So the assassin's armor here, it's not shown here because you have to have the full set on. The set bonus gives you a bonus called critical chain. What that does is after a crit, you'll have a 2.5% more chance of getting a crit immediately following. So basically that means is you attack, if you get the crit, and let's say you're using the full setup where you're using the Coup De Grass, Emil, the Stinger Spear, and Thor's Pendant, so you'll have a 12% chance of getting that first crit. Right after that, using that full armor set, you'll have a 14.5% on the next hit to get another crit, so you can get back-to-back crits. What that works out to mathematically is about a 1 in 57 chance of that actually occurring. So to be completely honest, between the two armor sets, if you're hell-bent on using crit as your build, it would seem to me to be much better to use the black ant armor specifically for crits. This is not taking into account the fact that the mantis armor does have other bonuses, like the Cutman, which has his bleed. That's a completely another formula that we're not going to get into today. And the fact that the black ant armor, the other bonuses it has are actually pretty poor, like the thorns, and I think there's like blocking strength or something. So overall, I would say if you're going straight crit build, the black ant armor might be better. But in general, they're just not worth it. Now, you can increase the crit multiplier a couple of ways as well. Number one is going to be via a mutation. So the mutation that increases critical hit chances is new in 1.0, or critical hit damage in 1.0 is Trapper Peeper. Trapper Peeper has yoked blows. Yoked blows for this, in this case, there's 3 phases. The first phase gives you 20% extra critical damage. The second is 40%, and the third is 60%. That means at phase 3, instead of doing the base 170% damage, you'll be doing 230. If you have Thor's Pendant on, you'll be doing 240%. The unfortunate situation is how you unlock Trapper Peeper. And I am 99.9% sure that this mutation unlock is currently bugged. Because the way it's supposed to work is to unlock phase 1, you have to get 20 gold cards. Phase 2 is supposed to be 40, and phase 3 is supposed to be 59. If we go over to my gold card tab here, I'm not going to count these, but I've counted them several times today just to make sure. I only have 25 unlocked. So somehow I only have 25 unlocked, which means I should only have phase 1 unlocked, but I have phase 3. So the theory that we're working with right now is that this is actually bugged, and rather than counting unique gold cards, it's counting duplicates. So I just learned about this today myself, and I'm sure none of you probably even thought about this, because why would you? You can actually get duplicate gold cards. So as an example, I have the gold card for the Red Worker Ant. Now I've killed 168 of them. There's a chance that I have multiples of these. Once I get this gold card, if I go kill a bunch of more, I could go kill 1,000 more Red Worker Ants. I'm never going to get the notification that I got another gold card, but there's a good chance mathematically that I will probably get, if I kill another 1,000 of them, 10 more gold cards, which means I could have 11 of these instead of only having 1. So more likely than not, what's occurred is some of these gold cards down here are actually duplicates, and that's why it's giving me credit for the Trapper Peeper level 3. Now, even if once it's fixed, it's going to be harder to get, because unlocking the gold cards, and I did confirm this again today, the chance of unlocking most of the gold cards is 1%. So with a few exceptions. So basically anything that I don't mention has a 1% chance of getting it. The ones that are above 1% are going to be the Ruz T, the Taze T, and the Archer. These have a limited number. So as you can see, there's 5 Ruz Ts on the map, there's 21 Taze Ts, and there's 4 Archers. You can get the gold card on the first kill for these, I believe, but once you've killed all of them, no matter what, once you've killed all 5 of them, you will guarantee get a gold card. Once you've killed all these, you're guaranteed to get the gold card. And once you've killed all these, you're guaranteed to get a gold card. In addition to that, there's 2 other enemies that have a higher than, there's a couple other enemies that have a higher percent chance. First is going to be the non-respawning bosses. So the assistant manager, the Mant, and the director all have a guaranteed gold card because you can only fight them one time. So when you kill them, you're guaranteed to get it. I think even if you don't peep them, I think it just gives you the peep as well as the gold card. And then the Broodmother and the Mantis, which are both repeatable bosses, have a 10% chance. Everything else in the game is going to be 1%. So you're seeing here, there's about, 51 plus, that's 50, there's 59. Actually, you have to get all the gold cards in the game to unlock it. So basically, you're going to be farming lots of these at a 1% drop rate. So if they do in fact fix that, the likelihood of you getting this unlocked, even at phase 2 or 3, or phase 1, 2, or 3 is going to be super low because I've gone out of my way on this save to farm gold cards, and this is all I've gotten. I literally kill almost every enemy that walks in front of me trying to get the gold cards, and I just, obviously, I've gotten less than half of them. So unlocking this is going to be super difficult. Now, if you do have it unlocked, that's going to change the equation a little bit, because combining this with one of the weapons in the game can actually give you a massive critical hit damage, and that's going to be using the Scythe of the Blossoms, which can be crafted from the Mantis parts. This also has Yoked Blows. In this case, these Yoked Blows is actually, to the best of my knowledge, plus 100% critical hit damage. That means you're going to be doing 270%. You're going to be doing the 170 plus the 100. Now, if you have the Trapper Peeper on and Thor's Pendant, you can actually do 340% critical hit damage. That completely changes the equation and blows everything up. So if you have all those things opened up and you're fighting tough enemies, it's probably going to be worth it. So as an example, using the Coup De Grass, eating a meal, using Thor's Pendant, and then using like the Black Ant Armor, using the Mantis Scythe, as well as having the Trapper Peeper unlocked, you'll do over 30% more damage on average. So that's a huge increase, but that's only going to be useful against tanky enemies because you're still only going to have that about a 1 in 7.5 attacks are going to do it. So essentially the only time I would recommend using Coup De Grass, or excuse me, Coup De Grass or crit build in general, is going to be if you have all the things unlocked. So you have Coup De Grass level 2, you're eating a meal, you're using Thor's Pendant, you have some of the Trapper Peeper unlocked, at least one of them, if not all. You're using the Mantis Scythe, and then you're probably going to want to be using the Black Ant Armor. You don't have to, but I mean, it would buff you a little bit. And then also you're going to be using a fast attack weapon, and you're fighting beefy enemies. The reason I say the fast attack weapon is, if you look at some of the weapons in here, like as an example, the club of the Mother Demon does way more damage, but it has a really low swing speed. Whereas the Scythe of the Mantis does less damage, but has a ridiculously fast swing speed. And you can also increase the swing speed of this by using the Apex Predator mutation, which will increase it by 25%. So why you want to use a fast swinging weapon is because the crits are a chance, you want to have the fastest swinging weapons possible so you can get as many attacks in as possible, while the crit damage for the Club of the Mother Demon would deal more damage than the Scythe, as an example. You're more likely to get a crit with the Scythe because you're going to get far more attacks in. So if you do decide to go the crit build, make sure you're using a fast swinging weapon, preferably probably a one-handed weapon, but you could also use the fast swinging two-handed weapons. So overall, that's kind of like where I am right now. I up until this point, I used Coup De Grass like religiously. It was as soon as I unlocked it, I put it on and I used it all the time. I'm about to start a new playthrough, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock it, of course. I'm just not going to use it until maybe super late game, but I can assure you for basically the entire time I'm in the lower yard, I do not plan on using this. I'd recommend, instead of using this, using something that would benefit you more. Like if you're fighting ants, using Annihilator. If you're in the hedge, maybe use Daredevil. Once they fix Natural Explorer, you can use that for the extra speed. You can use Cardio Fan, even though I still don't really like Cardio Fan, it's going to be better than Coup De Grass. Yeah, and then there's the other mutations like Fresh Defense, the Mithridatism, and then other things like the boss mutations that you unlock later on. Or you could even use, if you're using Axe, use Chopper. If you're using a Hammer, use Smasher. These are things that'll just give you, they seem more worthwhile to me than just straight up using the Coup De Grass early on. Like I said, maybe late game when you're fighting some of the bosses, it might be worthwhile. But if you're fighting weak enemies and it's just not, and you're going to kill things in less than 10 hits, it's just not worth using the mutation. So anyway, that's my opinions on crit and why I don't like using it. If they do end up buffing it, or maybe they add some other ways of getting more damage, or I find something else out that I didn't know, I'll make an updated video. But as of right now, I just don't recommend using crit early game, mid game. I'd only recommend really using it late game if you have the full setup, and probably only for bosses, because most of the regular enemies you can take down very easily, so it doesn't even matter. So anyway, if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button, and here's another video you might find helpful as well.